I'm in Rafah, in the south of the Gaza Strip on the border with Egypt. Here, amid the bombed-out buildings, Gaza's only branch of business is booming: tunnels. This plastic sheeting covers the entrances to the countless tunnels that connect Gaza with neighbouring Egypt. These tunnels are practically the only lifeline for Gaza. Israel has more or less sealed off the territory. The market stalls in Rafah may be full, but ordering and receiving consumer goods is something only those with money can do here. It all comes through the tunnels. It's a profitable business, but it's also a dangerous one. This woman tells me the tunnels are both a good and a bad thing. Many people have died building them, she says, but they're the only way to get hold of certain goods. One of those who risk their lives in the tunnels is Syed. Here in Rafah, he's known as one of the best tunnel builders. He's been working in the tunnels for a year and a half, and now jointly owns one of the underground passageways. Syed casts a worried look over the border into Egypt. It looks as though security forces there may be about to destroy a tunnel entrance. He tells me the Egyptian security forces sometimes blow up the tunnel entrances. If a tunnel builder is inside, he can be deafened by the explosion or even killed. Sometimes, Syed says, the Palestinian security forces give them warning and they have time to get out, but not always. And that's not the only danger. Tunnels sometimes collapse, and sometimes the Israeli Air Force bombs them to stop arms being smuggled into Gaza. Human rights organizations say more than 60 Palestinians have died that way in 2009 alone. Syed and the young man who work in his tunnel run that risk every day. They say it's better to work here than not at all. Abdallah and Adnan are both still teenagers and are relatively new to the job. Adnan says he was scared the first time he went down a tunnel, but now it's not too bad. Now he works here every day. And Abdallah tells me there are no other opportunities in Gaza. He says the children here still have dreams of having a proper profession, a doctor or a pilot. But as they grow up, reality bites. And after they complete their schooling, the only thing they can do is work here. They have to earn money somehow to feed their families. Syed takes me into the tunnel. The only way down is to be lowered by an electric winch. As I descend, it makes me a little uneasy knowing the power can cut out, as so often happens here. We're almost 20 meters below the ground. The tunnel runs for 150 meters across the Egyptian border, where it emerges inside a house. For a tunneler who's used to it, it's about a 20-minute walk. The atmosphere is stifling down here. Syed is busy widening his tunnel so bigger and more bulky goods can be transported through it. A consignment of window panes is waiting on the Egyptian side to be brought through into Gaza. It's skilled and dangerous work. Syed explains that the soil that forms the roof of the tunnel here is a kind of clay. He says the wider the tunnel, the greater the danger of the roof disintegrating and even collapsing completely. The tunnellers use vats to transport the excavated material to the surface and later to lift up the transported goods. Syed tells me they dig about 10 meters a day, notwithstanding technical problems like power cuts. Tunnel builders have to be careful not to collide with other tunnellers nearby. Syed says the tunnellers build a kind of wooden bridge when two tunnels intersect. The workers can hear where other tunnellers are by listening for the sound of drilling. He tells me you can hear that from about 5 meters away. And the nearer you are, the louder it is. He says there are several tunnels here, crisscrossing on several levels. His tunnel is above another one, and below two others, and there is yet another one right next to it. Syed explains most of the tunnels here are lined and secured with wooden planks. He says if he were to dig down right here, he would soon hit the wooden lining of the tunnel below us. The tunnel builders work in 2 12-hour shifts, but sometimes they can be down here for 20 hours on the trot. It's easy to lose your sense of time here. The young workers earn about 100 shekels a day. That's about 17 euros. There's much that comes through these tunnels that I was not able to film. No one here was willing to talk about weapons smuggling. But it's no secret that Hamas controls the tunnel system and even issues a permit for each new tunnel, disguised as a license to dig a well. You can't just start digging a tunnel here, Syed explains. If he were to dig a new tunnel without permission, Hamas would destroy it straight away. It's an illicit business that's strictly controlled, but there's no one controlling the conditions these young men work under. The tunnel builders take a break for a cigarette. This is back-breaking, stressful work, and danger is ever present. Many who work down here had other plans for their lives, like Syed. He tells me his dreams of a sporting career. In 1996 or 97, he was a well-known athlete in the Palestinian territories. But now, he says, he spends his days buried beneath the earth, like a corpse. Syed's story is not typical. 10 years ago, he was married to an Israeli woman. She now lives in Tel Aviv, and Syed's only contact with their son is by telephone. But now he has a new family here in Gaza. I ask him what they think about the work he does, and he tells me that they think it's rather strange. He says his son asks what it's like to work underground all day. Syed tells me he once brought his little 3-year-old daughter down here, but she wasn't afraid at all. But she was too young to understand the danger as they walked through the tunnel and back. Suddenly, there's a flurry of activity as word reaches us from the surface that Israeli fighter planes have been sighted overhead. Everyone who works here is trained to evacuate the tunnels in just a few minutes. After just 2 hours, I'm relieved to be back on the surface again. But these men have no choice but to spend their entire days down there. Syed sums up the situation when he tells me all the young people here have abandoned their dreams. They know there's no future for them, not for any of them. But there is one hope for the people of Gaza. That is that one day the border with Egypt will be opened again. That would mean the end of the tunneling business, but it would also open up a prospect for the future here. But until that happens, the tunnel builders will carry on working their shifts far beneath the ground.